All right, welcome to the DeVory Darkins show. It is November 24th, Monday, the week of Thanksgiving. And the drama continues, as you guys are abundantly aware of this whole, now the Department of War is calling it the seditious six. Six Democrats created a video suggesting that military personnel can defy orders from the commander-in-chief. And now Mark Kelly is getting some heat because according to Pete Hegseth, he is now under investigation because of this. Now, just so you guys understand, Mark Kelly is no longer a member of the military, okay? So I'm not too sure what the Secretary of War could really do about it, but we're going to show you exactly what was said. Also, the $2,000 tariff dividend checks, stimulus checks, checks, call it whatever you want, because it seems like these terms could continue to switch up. It has a lot to do with this ruling from the Supreme Court, obviously, right? So if the Supreme Court rules against the president, is he really going to be able to push forward with these checks? Probably not. And Howard Lutnik had some things to say in regards to that. And as we're coming on live right now, breaking news, James Comey and Letitia James, both of their cases have been thrown out by a district court judge, which is nothing new. I mean, what else did we truly expect here? I mean, this is, step number one in the resistance against everything that the president is doing is they go to the courts and they get a TRO, right? And this situation, this isn't even a TRO. This is, hey, Lindsay Halligan wasn't even qualified. She was not even appointed to the position in the right way. So because of that procedural violation, these cases need to be retried by somebody else. That is the bottom line up front. We have no reactions. We have nothing else but to tell you that at this moment in time. And so we'll probably talk about it later today once we get more reactions in. Okay, if you guys are new here, this is all about common sense commentary for these uncommon times. I like to show you guys both sides to the stories here, what one side is saying, what the other side is saying. It's not always left versus right. I mean, sometimes it's both right versus right, okay? But I want to make sure you guys get the full picture so you can think for yourself, but also give you some ways to do that, okay? And I told you every Monday we're going to really double down on our method of thinking here on the show, particularly the kind of scoring matrix we like to use here. So we like to focus on the reality of these policies that are coming out of Washington. We like to focus on the populist approach, okay? So whatever's coming out of Washington, whether it's Congress or the White House, is this a populist position? How will it impact the people? We're also going to go over the fact, is this within principle or is this more of a tribal move? Okay. And of course, how does the politics play? And so those are a couple of principles that we like to use, and we'll focus on that when we get to the whole tariff situation. Now, having said all that, let's kick this thing off with MS Now. Is that the way to say it? MS Now? Can I still say MSDNC, or is that still being a little too partisan, right? I like to say it because I just think it's funny, okay? But anyways, here is Joe Scarborough on Morning Joe this morning, telling the truth about what's happening regarding these members of Congress who are, suggesting military members can defy orders from the commander-in-chief. And the first part, he's telling the truth. And then the second half, he goes into another direction, and we will react to both. Take a listen to this.
So here's what Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan, who was part of the effort, said yesterday when asked by ABC News to be specific about what illegal orders are being issued by the White House.
So let's talk right now. Do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these Caribbean strikes and everything related to Venezuela.
Okay, wrong answer.
Well,
I'm sorry, with all due respect, wrong answer. President of the United States, the commander-in-chief does have, Jonathan Lemire, wide latitude. Just does. And the Senate can take that up. But he has wide latitude on strikes. Ask Barack Obama and drone strikes. Ask George W. Bush and drone strikes. But where we know the president has said, I am going to give illegal orders to people in the military, is when he was on Air Force One, coming back, I forget where he was coming back from, but he said, I can send the Marines, I can send the Army, I can send the Air Force, I can send the Coast Guard into any city I want to control crime. And the courts can't do anything about it. That's illegal. It's just illegal. And so Democrats kind of need to, if the president has already said, I'm going to commit this illegal act, then I'm kind of surprised they don't have the answer when they go on a Sunday show for that.
Okay, I want to show you guys this when you actually do the research, because that's where we want to start first, okay? I don't want to get into attacking people's character, the person. Let's just focus on the numbers themselves. First off, it is true that the president has the authority to authorize military airstrikes in any part of the world, really. The only problem that happens is if he's going to put boots on ground, then he needs to go to Congress because that is literally an act of war, right? And when you're actually looking at the numbers, it's astounding when you compare his total of airstrikes to Biden, which is really interesting. You're going to find this out here shortly, to obviously Obama and George Bush. But let's go back to what he originally said. So in regards to the president sending military into cities or states, the law is very clear. The president of the United States can deploy members of the military to these cities under one condition if he's not looking for an authorization or a request from the governor. It's because there's a current insurrection happening on federal assets, okay? Federal assets, meaning buildings, personnel, vehicles. That's why these ICE detention facilities, in my opinion, should have been protected by local police departments, because if they don't want the president to be tempted to deploy military personnel, they should just get ahead of it, block it off, secure it, and ensure that members of that community cannot access the ICE detention facility. It's not a violation of their free speech. Just block it off. I just don't understand why that is difficult. But when you have politics injected in all of this, of course, they're not going to do it. And we've seen that in Chicago, where stand-down orders were issued, led to tear gas having to be deployed. And now the Chicago Police Department is obviously engaged because the last thing they want is military personnel in these cities. Now, there's a silver lining to this. Deploying military personnel to these cities in conjunction with DEA, marshals, FBI, and all these federal agencies for at least 3 months would absolutely have an impact on crime, okay? But it would require the authorization on the military side from the governor. So it's like what we've seen in D.C. and Memphis. Both of these areas have seen a reduction in crime. Both of these areas, you do not hear the same level of resistance that you're getting from Chicago, now Charlotte, Los Angeles, and Portland. And I just think it's really simple. If what you've been doing so far has not actually delivered the results for the local community in a way of keeping them safe, why not just try this? I think that kind of makes sense. At any rate, let's get to what the Secretary of War put up here, because I just think it's interesting. I think it's funny. And again, I'm not too sure how they're going to be able to actually hold Senator Mark Kelly accountable, but we'll read it together, and then I guess we'll have to just kind of figure it out from there, right? Let me zoom in for you guys so you can see what I see here. There we go. So the Department of War has received serious allegations of misconduct against Captain Mark Kelly, retired from the Navy, in accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice, 10 U.S.C. 688, and other applicable regulations. A thorough review of these allegations has been initiated to determine further actions, which may include recall to active duty for court-martial proceedings or administrative measures. This is why the thumbnail says court-martial, because it's right there in the language. This matter will be handled in compliance with military law, ensuring due process and impartiality. Further official comments will be limited to preserve the integrity of the proceedings. Now, bottom line up front, this is probably going to go nowhere. Okay, members of Congress are not really held accountable on both sides of the aisle, unless, you know, I guess your name is George Santos. Okay, maybe there, or what's the other guy? He used to be out of Jersey. Mendez, I think his last name was, for racketeering and wire fraud. But it's not very often you actually hear members of Congress truly being held accountable. You got McCormick out of Florida, who's been having trouble since day one. She still hasn't been convicted or gone to prison or been kicked out of Congress. Okay, so, I guess you're going to have to accept my level of skepticism. I don't think this is really going to go anywhere, but we'll talk about it. Let's continue here. The Department of War reminds all individuals that military retirees remain subject to the UCMJ for applicable offenses of federal law, such as 18 U.S.C. 2387, prohibit actions intended to interfere with the loyalty, morale, or good order and discipline to the armed forces. Any violations will be addressed through appropriate legal channels. All service members are reminded that they have a legal obligation under the UCMJ to obey lawful orders, and that orders are presumed to be lawful. A service member's personal philosophy does not justify or excuse the disobedience of an otherwise lawful order. All right. Okay. Where do I start, right? Some of you guys already know I served 13 years in the Army. This is a complete joke. This is the type of stuff that makes people not even join the military. Nobody needs to hear this from the members of Congress. They're not even in the chain of command. So why would we be listening to a video from them? You know, it's just fascinating. Like a private out there is not thinking about a member of Congress. They're thinking about their team leader, their squad leader, their platoon leader, their platoon sergeant, the mission at hand, and then going home to their family or friends. Okay, that's literally what's on their mind every day. So I find it interesting that Democrats take the time out to create this video suggesting to military members that they can defy unlawful orders. They get the training already. It's called basic training, okay? It's not like they don't know this stuff already. So, the argument Democrats are making, well, we're just reminding them. You know what? Here's a better idea. Instead of taking time out to create these videos to remind the military of what, the laws and regulations are, which they get this a reminder of what the regulations are every single year, why not focus on affordability? Why not focus on introducing pieces of legislation that backs up what you guys have been screaming about? You guys shut the government down for 42 days regarding ACA subsidies, and I still have yet to hear a bill introduced on the floor in regards to that. You guys are complaining prices have not gone down. Let's blame President Trump, but introduce a solution. And that standard applies to both sides of the aisle. The American people don't want to continue to experience this Kim Kardashian reality drama TV show on Capitol Hill. We want to see the work of the people executing. At least look like you're doing your job, okay? So this video is more partisan politics. This video is more political theater and a distraction. And the fact that it's leading in all networks, meaning they're leading with these stories and they're having to ask stupid questions. I'll give you an example of how stupid these questions are at this point. Listen to what happened yesterday with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press.
I wonder, do you know what the specific illegal acts are that your Democratic colleagues were referring to there?
Well, it's very clear in this code for the military that you cannot follow unlawful orders. And, that would be, I'll just use an example. Some of the judges have now found in certain cities that it is not legal to send in the National Guard. And those National Guard members have come home. Some of them are still there. But if their commander were to tell them, hey, go out on the streets and do this and that, that's not following the order that is in law. So I just use that example. I'm sure my colleagues would have other.
Okay. Let's just take what she says as face value. Let's say it's true. Again, why would you instruct military members to violate the chain of command? If you want a military force that has the highest level of readiness, effectiveness, and their ability to execute the mission, you would never encourage them to violate orders. You would tell them to execute, and then we can debate the orders after the fact. I mean, it's so pathetic that Slotkin tried to use the movie A Few Good Men to make her point. I mean, it's that embarrassing. These questions are stupid, quite frankly. But they can't give you an example where the president has officially issued an unlawful order. They can't give it to us. So this goes back to what I tell you guys all. The problem with the Democrat Party, it's always a bunch of this could happen, this may happen, I think he's going to do this, but it hasn't happened, okay? There's a difference in that. And that has to be called out every step of the way. Because how much attention are you going to give to something that may happen versus what is happening? What is happening is the present moment. They're so focused on hypotheticals, right? And it trickles down. That's why everybody, we're living in a fascist state. They have no idea what fascism is. Why don't you go move to Venezuela and then you'll really find out what fascism is? So it's a mindset that they continue to adapt. Okay, I want to show you guys these numbers of airstrikes, but before I do, I want you guys to hear this message from the sponsor of today's show, Tax Network USA. Now, here's a very serious question. Do you owe money when it comes to back taxes? Are your tax returns still unfiled? Did you forget to file for the extension? The October 15 deadline is fast approaching. And if you haven't done anything, the IRS could target you. What does that look like exactly? Well, they could garnish your wages, freeze your bank account, even seize your property. But help is available if you reach out to Tax Network USA, which is a nationwide firm responsible, by the way, for saving over $1 billion in tax debt for everyday Americans. They filed hundreds of thousands of tax returns, reducing people's tax burden, and they probably could help you too. And that's why I say don't wait. Go to tnusa.com/DeVory or call 1-800-958-1000. Speak to a consultant. It's 100% free, by the way. This could save you thousands of dollars, especially if you feel like you may or maybe you don't have a tax burden. But speak to the experts. Again, that is tnusa.com/DeVory or call 1-800-958-1000. Okay, let me show you guys this. This is fascinating. Okay, this is fascinating. Just read this on the screen, please. Confirm airstrikes only where an official or independently audited count exists. Not hypotheticals, not estimates. Confirm numbers. Under George Bush, it was 57 airstrikes. Under Barack Obama, 563. 563 airstrikes that were never officially authorized by Congress because it is implied that the President of the United States inherently has the authority in order to do that because he's not putting boots on ground. So going originally back to the beginning of this video regarding on Morning Joe, where he's criticizing, what's happening in the Caribbeans and Venezuela, which we all know is a regime change at this point. Can we all just call that out, please? Just be honest about it. I guess a part of me wishes they would just be honest about it. Just call it what it is, all right? You guys are looking to remove him, and just tell us why. You're looking to remove him because he lost an election. 70% of people voted against him, okay? And he refuses to leave office, and he's the head of the one of the big cartels, and, he's not good for the Western Hemisphere. Just say that, okay? And I think people would be better off. All right. So I want to show you guys those numbers. Now, let's go to the next stupid question that was asked of another Democrat congresswoman.
What illegal orders are you urging troops to refuse, and what do you hope they take away from your message?
Alex, we love this country. We love our Constitution. It is our job as lawmakers, and especially in this moment, to be clear morally, to be clear legally. And simply and clearly stating what the law says, what the Uniform Code of Military Justice says, it's not a crime. It is not treason. It is not sedition. It is our job. And I think it's really important that we do our jobs in this moment.
Hold on. Okay. Let's just process what she said. She says it's their job to remind members of the military about what the regulations are. No, it's not. That job rests alone with the leadership, the chain of command. And on an individual level, the soldier's responsibility as well. Members of Congress, their job is to pass laws, which they continue to fail to do, by the way. All right. It's interesting how they say that everything the president is doing is a distraction from the Epstein files. One could say the same thing about Democrats regarding everything is a distraction from actually doing their job. It's just fascinating that this is what they're obsessed with. So let's go back so you guys understand where I'm at with this. We go back almost, 60 days ago when the government shut down on October 31st. That was the deadline. And, October 1st, right? At any rate, what was the main talking point? ACA subsidies. Then it was SNAP benefits. Then it was Epstein files. And now it's unlawful orders. And the fascinating part about all of this, no results, no bills voted on. The only thing that has been voted on, just so you guys all understand, okay, the only thing that's been voted on is reopening the government. Okay, that's one. Two, condemning socialism. What does condemning socialism on paper have to do with any of us. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, a progressive, a conservative. What does that truly have to do with the American people? Even people who aren't even aware of politics, just they're waking up every day trying to live a great life. It has nothing to do with it. This is what they're focused on. And so we got to call it out. All right. So now that you've heard the stupid questions, let's actually hear someone that has the right idea about what happened.
I want to be precise, Congresswoman. Should members of the U.S. military or the intelligence community, for that matter, obey what are clearly illegal orders if in their mind what they're being told to do is something illegal? Should they still go ahead and follow those rules?
You're asking an enlisted person for their opinion on what they think is legal or illegal. That's a pretty slippery slope. Wouldn't you agree with that? So that's an interpretation. And what the president has done is not illegal, right? So I would say follow the chain of command. Follow your commander in chief. That's the oath that you took. Because if you leave everything up to interpretation, you could interpret things one way. I could interpret things another way. And that is a very dangerous situation to put this nation in.
I couldn't have said it better. Now, let's just use their logic. If I go to the staffers and the aides and the personal assistants of the members of Congress, and I tell these individuals, hey, it's okay for you to disagree with them. It's okay for you not to execute on the orders that are being given to you. If you want to question things, go right on ahead. Don't you think they're going to get pissed off at me and say, hey, what are you doing? It's just interesting this isn't, I mean, even in that scenario, it kind of makes sense why a person would have the ability to be like, hey, I'm not following orders, I quit. Yeah, because they didn't sign an oath of office, right? There's literally no contract in some cases. Someone could quit right now. It's okay. But in the military, you can't just quit. You can't just walk off. I mean, unless you want to commit AWOL, obviously. But even then, you're still not removed from the military. There's a process in place. So as someone who served in the military, this is the type of stuff that makes politics disgusting. I think that's the simple way of putting it. Now, to bring my point home, I don't think it takes a member of Congress to truly understand what's going on here. I think it takes a simple patriot like you, like me, and someone who has common sense. And here is an example of this. Someone who's not famous, someone that we found on X, who clearly was able to articulate the law as it stands in a common sense way. Take a listen.
18 U.S. Code 2387, activities affecting armed forces general. This statute makes it a federal crime to do any of the following with the intent to interfere with U.S. military operations. 1. Advise, urge, or attempt to cause insubordination, disloyalty, mutiny, or refusal of duty among members of the U.S. military. 2. Obstruct or attempt to obstruct recruiting, enlistment, or military operations. Or 3, distribute any materials advocating any of the above. This law does not require advocating the overthrow of the government. That's 2385. Section 2387, which we just read, is specifically about undermining the functions of the U.S. military. So with that in mind, think about again the video that the 6 Democrats put out just a few days ago. Is any of that advising, urging, or attempting to cause, insubordination, disloyalty, or mutiny, or the refusal of duty part? Because that is exactly what they were saying. And I know they say, oh, well, we were just saying for any illegal action. But notice they don't specify any illegal orders that Trump has given one way or another. They leave it open to interpretation, which of course was the intent. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. They wanted to create doubt within U.S. service members, which is 100% a mutiny. Mutiny is defined as an open rebellion against the proper authorities. They wanted to make the service members doubt, or the service members who already were doubting. They were advocating for their mutiny. Trump is the commander in chief. It'd be one thing if he was actually given illegal orders, but that hasn't happened. I truly do not see how they can twist it any other way. I think people need to be held accountable for this, because this is a big deal.
That is just phenomenal. There's a couple of things that I think about when I'm listening to that. Number one is this. There's a huge risk that our political representatives are playing at here. And that when they start to speak the way that they do, there's some people who are going to take it literally. For example, you have members of the National Guard out of Illinois. A couple of them already publicly went on to ABC, did an interview talking about they would not follow the commander-in-chief's orders if he deployed National Guard troops to their cities. That is so besides yourself as a soldier. That's not why you sign up. And quite frankly, I hope those people have been discharged, because that's not the culture in the military. You need to follow orders. That's just the bottom line to it. And if the orders are unlawful, by the way, then they will be challenged appropriately. Okay, it's not like it hasn't happened before. And then secondly, what I also find interesting is what's happening with information. Now, let me break this down for you guys. I think you guys will appreciate this for my critical thinkers out there. We live in a time today where two things are happening at the same time. Someone in front of a camera will blatantly lie to you with the assumption that most people won't actually do the research. We see that most often now, unfortunately, on mainstream media with people who claim to be journalists, and also people in Congress and in politics in general. But the second part, which is also just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, is you have people who have mastered the art of suggesting ideas to you without actually telling you what they want you to think verbatim. Okay? This is why we show you guys both sides of the story, because it's easy to be like, hey, let me just ask questions in a particular way to get you to think a certain way, because I know naturally you will arrive at the conclusion I want you to arrive at. So I'm going to hit you from this way. I'm going to hit you from that way. I'm going to ask this particular question. I'm going to suggest every single thing to get you to believe in the ultimate conclusion I want you to have. This is what's happening with information today. And when people approach it from that perspective, what they're not doing is actually judging things on the merits, right? They're basically encouraging people to doubt everything. And if you doubt everything, how can you have clarity on anything? And so those two things are happening at the same time. And so what should you be doing about it? Well, in my opinion, I don't believe most of what I see and only half of what I hear. You guys following what I'm saying? Okay. I don't believe most of what I see and only half of what I hear. So just because I read something, just because I see it in the video, doesn't mean I believe it. Okay. And even when they're trying to explain themselves, only half is I'm willing to actually agree with. Okay. I'd rather go do my own research. All right. And here's the thing about having common sense, as you guys all know, the results will tell the story. That's the interesting part about all this. We can get caught up in the semantics. We can debate till we're blue in the face. You know, we could try to find high IQ positions to take so we can one-up each other. At the end of the day, guys, it's really simple. It's been like this since day one. Results tell the story. Okay? If the president was issuing unlawful orders, the results would show that. It's just that simple. Okay? I mean, if the president was exceeding his authority with the U.S. Constitution, he would not be positive with the Supreme Court at this point. Understand something. The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the president 26 times in 10 months. Let me say that again. The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the president 26 times in 10 months. Even if you say half of it is biased because it's a conservative court. That's still a great record. So the results tell the story. Oh, well, you know, the president is terrorizing our neighborhoods with ICE. Okay. How many kids can't read? How many kids are killing each other, especially in Chicago? How many black kids are killing each other in Chicago? What about the educators who are caught spending $6 million going on luxury trips, getting massages, and spending taxpayer money? What about the fact that illegal immigration has decimated the budget of Chicago? I'm just using one city as an example. The results show that their policies are not actually benefiting the people of Chicago, the people of Los Angeles, the people of Portland. We can go all over the country. That doesn't mean Republicans in charge are also benefiting their people. I'm just telling you, based on the rhetoric, all we have to do is look at the results. It tells us everything we need to know. But when we live in a state of tribalism, people don't look at the results. They don't care about the facts. They care about their feelings. I feel like this is uncomfortable. So when ICE rolls up, pulls somebody over, arrests them, throws them in the car, I feel like that is aggressive. I feel that is terrible. Yeah, but the law is very clear. If you enter the country illegally and then you try to evade arrest, they're going to track you down, they're going to grab you, they're going to snatch you, they're going to throw you in the car, and you're going to get deported. So there's a difference there. All right. Well, I don't know. What do you guys have to say about this, right? How about that? Why don't we get your guys' opinion on the matter? Let me pull this up so we can see what you guys have to say. I just think ultimately most of this stuff is a pure distraction from what we should be focusing on. And the reality is we're going into holidays right now, and Congress is not, they're not getting the message, right? All right, we're on YouTube right now. Shout out to YouTube. Thank you guys for following us here. All right, let's see here. Believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. Thank you very much for correcting that. That's exactly what I meant. All right, so the pushback is this. The president posted seditious behavior punishable by death. Is that how a president should talk? Let's go with your theory. Should a president post on a platform that he owns, given First Amendment speech and his rights, should he be able to post something like that? He can, because it's called First Amendment. Now, is it ethical? Is it moral? I mean, some of you guys could debate that. But let's use common sense again. What does the result say about who the president is? What does the result show about who the president is? The results tells us that the president says exactly what he thinks. Does that mean he's issuing these orders? Okay. There's a difference there. He is not putting out videos instructing the citizens to go after members of Congress because of this behavior and to kill them. He didn't release a video that way. And although I wouldn't say seditious behavior punishable by death, I know he was quoting from the law. I wouldn't talk like that because that's not who I am. So, I think two things are true at the same time. The president will post things that most people wouldn't post and get away with. Okay. And most of it we could say is, yeah, I don't like my president speaking that way. Okay, fine. But it's also true that Democrats make the mistake every single time of having to react to it. So they become slave to everything the president does. It's like your negative friend that you may have had in your life or a family member. You keep calling them. You keep hanging around. You keep reacting. You keep giving them energy. And what happens? You continue to be frustrated because you keep giving it energy. What I still don't understand today is why do Democrats feel the need, and the media, quite frankly, the need to react to every word that comes out of his mouth? Sometimes it's okay not to react. You don't have to comment on everything that he does, but they can't help it. This is just the world we live in. And as a result of them having to react to everything that he does, it's hard for them to discern what's really credible here, what isn't, what's really worth fighting over, and what isn't. So it's all about Trump, Trump, Trumpity, Trump. Okay, let's go to Rumble. Why is it, here's a good question. Why is it necessary for him to say that? Because nobody else will say it for him. Okay. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, even if we went with, hey, the president should have never said that, he's not actually potentially violating any law by saying that. These members of Congress are potentially violating the law by creating that video. And I'm trying to go to the most compromised positions on both sides of this debate. Yeah, what would they report on without Trump? I'm not too sure. Yep. I think the message from the 6 members of Congress is to sow doubt in the minds of young military members regarding orders, rather they are lawful or not. Yeah. See, a lot of these people, they are attorneys before they join the Congress. So they're really good at, suggesting certain things. They're really good at the narrative. They're really good at not answering questions. That's just the reality. Let's see here. To be fair, Comey and Letitia James' indictment should have been thrown out. Pam Bondi messed up. The indictment against Trump was thrown out for the same exact reason, so they should have known better. Okay. So I had this discussion last week with a good friend. If you're going to hit Letitia James with mortgage fraud and Adam Schiff, you know that's not going to go anywhere, right? You're going to need to do better than that. I'm saying if you're going to go down the road of trying to prosecute them. Okay. Now, just because this judge threw this case out doesn't mean they won't be indicted again. Okay. Just so you guys all understand. And if they were able to indict the president of the United States on 34 felony counts for shuffling paperwork and paying a porn star, and we know how unethical and immoral that is, no question, but is it illegal? Most people would say no, it's not. Most legal scholars said it was not. And the judge found a way to clearly define the rules of the game in the courtroom that led to the jury delivering their verdict. And that's that. There's no going back. So if you think you're going to indict a former president at the time on 34 felony counts and he's not going to retaliate, I don't know what world you're living in. You think that the people who went after Hunter Biden isn't paying for that today? You don't think people who have gone after the Obamas haven't paid? Yes, they have. See, you don't really hear about it because President Trump's name isn't attached, because when you're talking about Trump, that gets attention. Let's stop being naive here, folks. If you're going to target the president of the United States and his family, you know what you're asking for. I don't care if it was a Democrat president, a Republican president, an independent president. There's no way someone serving in that position is going to be like, no, I'm good. I forgive them. Absolutely not. Okay, so why do you think people were silent as night under the Biden administration? You thought they were really going to criticize him? Okay, it's only after he left office, then they wanted to say everything. Then you find out they all knew, they just couldn't say it. Oh, okay. So it's interesting. They apply this standard to the president, but they don't apply it to themselves. And here's the other thing. If you're going to go after a president, okay, you got to have your ducks in a row. If you're going to go after James and Comey and Brennan, you better have your ducks in a row. So, we know what the president's doing here, but, we'll see if he finds some level of success. I can tell you this. At the end of the day, it's about results. So he can go after these people and they can be convicted, but that's not going to win any midterms. Okay, the economy will win the midterms. That's what's more important at the end of the day. If you're having to do priorities, okay, people's wages, job opportunities, the state of the economy is going to come first every single time. Now, the supporters of President Trump, no doubt, want to see accountability, but I mean, I wouldn't hold your breath. Okay, we've seen what happened with the Epstein files on both sides. If they really wanted to hold people accountable, they would already went after them 5 years ago in 2019. They already knew the names. Okay. Isn't it interesting that you haven't heard a Democrat, a president on both sides of the aisle condemn Prince Andrew? Isn't that interesting? Why haven't they done that yet? Isn't it interesting they haven't released a statement condemning Larry Summers? So these people aren't really looking for justice. I hope you guys understand that, okay? And what happens is they push these narratives because they want us divided. So while we are fighting amongst each other, they're getting what they want in the process. Okay? That's just what it is. All right. Let's go to story 2 about the tariffs. This is where we're really going to get into some critical thinking. Before we get there, let me play this message from our other sponsor, American Finance. All right, so I have a question for the homeowners out there, and this is pretty serious. What if you could delay your next 2 mortgage payments? I'm talking about putting in that money back into your pocket while we head into the holidays. Well, you could do that if you call American Financing today, because if you're feeling stretched like all the other Americans out there where they're putting expenses like gas and bills and gifts for the holidays on their credit cards, you know the interest rates are insane. They're in the 20s and 30s. That's why American Financing can show you how to take your home's equity, pay off that debt with an interest rate that's in the low 5s. And their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving people just like you every single month on an average of $800 a month without any upfront fees. So call today before it's too late. 866-890-9392, 866-890-9392, or go to americanfinancing.net/DeVory. All right. So tariffs, particularly tariff checks. Now, people would love an extra $2,000 in their bank account. No doubt about it. So let me lay the land here. One side is all for this. Let's give the money back to the people. Let's give people some relief. Let's combine these tariff checks with tax season, which is going to come where a lot of people are going to receive some money. And that's going to really change the mood of the country and give people a nice little break. Okay. Other side says, screw all that. We need to pay down debt ASAP. Okay. This is the problem with our government. They keep trying to hand money out instead of doing what needs to be done, which is to cut into our debt. Okay. Just so you guys are all on the same page, the interest on the debt has already exceeded. Let me put it to you this way. The interest on the debt, the only thing it's not higher than is Social Security. It's higher than Medicaid. It's higher than Medicare. It's higher than the Department of War. It's higher than all the other government programs except Social Security. The interest, not the principal. Okay. So we're talking about fiscal conservatives, really, who feel this way. Pay down the debt. Even if people have to suffer, we need to pay our debt down. Okay. And then 3, there are people who believe that the tariffs overall are illegal. The president does not have the authority to even apply them in the first place. And they need to be removed. He needs to be removed from authority, and the money needs to be returned because it's hurting the American people, because really prices are going up because of tariffs. All right. So now that you guys have heard that, let's listen to what Howard Lutnik told Fox Business this morning.
We're going to win the case. It's pretty clear. I sat in the Supreme Court. We're going to win the case. But the fact is the president has all sorts of policies and tools throughout. He's got tariff rules of 232 in my department. He's got 301. He's got 338. Tariffs are going to be a part of this administration's national security and national economic protection of the American people. But we are going to win the case. So you can worry about the backup plan, but you're going to watch the Supreme Court back this president, because this president has proven that he can protect America, and IEPA is protecting America. So we are going to win this case. You heard it from me. I feel confident. I sat through the case. We are going to win.
We'll see. Okay, that's my initial reaction. We'll see. Because the president is using this particular statute in a way that's never been used before. And I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying that this is something that's never happened before. So it'd be interesting to see what their opinion and ruling will be in the end. I will say this, though. If countries are going to place tariffs on us, then we should place tariffs on them. I think that's a common sense approach. Okay? It's also known as reciprocal tariffs. I think that's fair. What I don't think that is fair is when we allow other countries to pretty much have the leverage over us in a way where they control our own supply chain. And I'm talking about China. You know, we get into this whole debate regarding foreign influence. The degree that China has as far as their influence over the world and their influence on our own country is second to none. If we are 1A, they are 1B. Okay? We're talking about a country that literally programmed a generation using a social media platform called TikTok. They changed the way people consume information within our own country. Okay? This is a country who, when COVID hit, which came from their country, by the way, also known as Kung Flu, hopefully nobody's offended by that term, a leak in the lab. Some people think it happened on purpose. Some think it's accident. It's funny how Dr. Fauci has not been prosecuted. But at any rate, this is a country where they are responsible for what happened to this world regarding COVID. And we learned very quickly that they owned our supply chain. So regardless of this tariff nonsense, the real threat, the real problem is the amount of influence that China has, and it's something that we need to deal with. And tariffs is one tool to pull that off, of course. Now, having said all that, let's go to Ron Johnson, because he's not for the checks regarding tariffs. He doesn't believe people really need them. He's not in support of it.
What about these $2,000 checks that the president has been talking about? Would that fly in terms of passing the Congress, or do you expect that the only way that could actually see the light of day is through a second reconciliation package?
Well, first of all, Maria, we're $38 trillion in debt. We've averaged $1.9 trillion deficits over the last 5 years. Over the next 10 years, the projection is about $26 trillion in cumulative deficits. We have to address the deficit problem. We are on borrowed time here. So many people are whistling by the graveyard. If we're bringing in revenue through the tariffs, that ought to be applied to reduce the deficit, not just to making a cash payment to Americans.
It sounds like you would vote no in terms of $2,000 checks going to individuals.
We can't afford it. I wish you're in a position to return the American public their money, but we're not. We'll have at least a $2 trillion deficit this year. Again, that compares to prior to the pandemic. You know, President Trump had deficits. He's running about $800 billion. Obama, his last 4 years, $550 billion a year. Now we're $2 trillion. Completely unacceptable. We have to start focusing on that and doing something about it.
Okay. So let's use our snap judgment curriculum here, the way that we score some of these policies. All right. We're still working on the app, but I want to go through this with you guys. The key metrics here is when someone introduces a policy, we filter it through 5 things. The reality of it, meaning, is this really going to deliver the results? Is there a true tangible outcome? The politics of it, is there a true leverage in doing this? The populism of it, really impact the American people? Optics wise, how does this look? And then principle, okay? Is this in accordance with the U.S. Constitution, in accordance with conservative values, etc.? Okay. And according to what we put together this morning, the reality of issuing $2,000 tariff revenue checks to the American people is not good. Why? Because the tariff revenue won't be able to fund all of it, okay? You're still going to have to take out debt to fund this, ultimately. So the reality of it doesn't make any sense. Politics-wise, for the president, it knocks it out of the park. It's a 9 out of 10. I mean, yes, you're going to give me some $2,000 check, please. Who doesn't want an extra $2,000 in their bank account? Which leads us to number 3. How does it impact the people in the short term? If you're struggling right now to pay rent and you just got $2,000, I mean, I think you're jumping up and down, right? Okay, you don't care about the effect it's going to have on inflation. You don't care about what the experts have to say. You feel the impact of that money hitting your bank account and you're able to pay rent with it, okay? The optics of it, of course, looks great, especially if you're thinking about it. Wow, the president went up the tariffs. He made extra revenue with the tariff. They're on pace to generate $600 billion by the end of this year. And now he's going to turn around and give that to the American people. That makes total sense, right? The problem is, from a fiscal standpoint, a conservative standpoint, if you're talking about limited government, this violates all of it. Okay. The last thing we need is more government programs, more government handing out money, more government being involved in our daily lives. This is the objective way that we are looking at this. Now, just so you guys understand where I'm at with it, I don't believe the president needs to hand out these $2,000 checks. Now, I do believe from a political strategist standpoint why he would do it. Okay. If you're going to give someone $2,000 tariff checks, and they're going to see a lot of money back from taxes, how will they feel about the economy then? Everybody's caught up in this doomer mindset right now, but they don't understand how quickly people change and how they feel. Right now, everybody's upset. They're going into the holidays. Money is tight. They got to borrow money. They max out their credit cards. They're upset. Watch what happens when March rolls around. Money starts hitting the bank account. They start getting their tax money. And then if they're able to get this $2,000 tariff check, they're not going to have anything to say. They're going to be like, oh, yep, this is what I voted for. I'm good. That's just the way the American voter is. So listen, I think we should pay down debt, but there's a lot of things I would rather us do. This is the interesting thing about politics. If you're a progressive, you don't care about any of this. There is no restriction in your mind. Hey, let's advance more government programs, universal Medicare. We'll pay for childcare. We'll pay time off, the whole thing. The government's going to pay for it. Conservatives are like, no, the government shouldn't pay for anything. Let's slash the government in half. Let's pay down our debt. And you know what's interesting? Both perspectives would yield results that the American people won't be able to stomach. If a true conservative ran the government in the way that it should be, people would be throwing up right now. Because what would happen is they would slash the government in half. They would stop spending immediately. They would cut government programs. They would slash healthcare in half. Believe that. And what does that happen? Oh, people would they'd pass out. Okay. I mean, people are already passing out because of what the president has done. And he's only done a fraction of what we're saying here that a conservative would do. Then you go to the other side of the spectrum. You go to a progressive. Yeah, let's government run grocery stores. Okay. Yeah. And then when the grocery stores are empty, then what? People are going to be like, wait, what's going on here? And then when the government, the government's going to control everything if you let progressives in charge. Okay, that means you don't own anything. You have no say in anything because they control it all. Then what? So again, that's why common sense is so needed in our country. I think that there's a lot of room for compromise and common ground. And I'm not too sure our politicians in Congress are really about that right now. Okay, I think it's more divisive than ever. So I guess the next logical question is, what should we be doing? Well, you should be focusing on yourself and your family. We talk about this every week, right? You should be making decisions that can improve the quality of your life, especially for the people out there who are having a tough time. And I've gone over exactly how to do this. I don't know, I'm starting to say it almost every day now, that you can improve the quality of your life. It just starts with your mindset. Then you got to understand a little financial literacy. And then you got to get into skills. You got to have the skills to demand a better job, to demand a better career, or to start a business, start solving problems for people. That's how you can impact your life directly without waiting for the federal government to do it. See, there's a lot of people right now living paycheck to paycheck, and they make good money. They make over six figures. The problem is they're living above their means. So these tariff checks, they will be a short-term solution, not a long-term one, okay? That is the bottom line to it. Now, here's what Howard Lutnik had to say about these tariff checks as well.
Look, the tariffs are an American policy. The president wants the American people to understand how great tariffs are for them. And so one of the ways to prove to the American people how great tariffs are is to have them share in a part of 1 year's income from these tariffs. And that's $2,000 a head, as he said, for people who need the money. You know, he's going to constrain it to people who need the money. And that's exciting. So the president's got that on his desk. I know that's something he wants to achieve, and his legislative team will figure out the best way to do it. But what he's trying to do is make sure people in America understand that tariffs are their policy. It's to make America stronger, and it could also benefit their pocketbook. And that is coming next year from the president.
Okay. So that is his perspective. Question for everybody. Do you believe the president should issue these $2,000 tariff checks to people who are making $100,000 or less? How many of you guys support that? How many of you guys support that policy decision? Now, it's going to take an act of Congress, of course, so I'm not too sure it's going to happen anyway, because, you know, they can't agree on anything. We just saw what happened with the government shutdown. Someone made a good point. All the people on SNAP will get these checks. Okay, so we have quite a few yeses here. Yes, but not yet. Next summer. Yes, because Trump already promised it. Someone said no, tax break instead. Yeah. See, the psychology of it all, guys, when someone hands something to you and you didn't earn it, your ability to appreciate it is not that high. And that's not an indictment on you. That's just the cost of being a human being. You know, it's just what it is. So all we have to do is go back to see what happened under COVID. The first COVID stimulus check made a lot of sense. But the second and third one, that was just gross negligence, okay? We didn't need a second, third stimulus check. No, the tax breaks from the one big beautiful bill has not hit yet. You're going to see that when you file your taxes for next year. All right, let's go to YouTube and see what you guys have to say to my question. But see, the $2,000 check, I mean, I would... Let's go through this one more time. Record inflation under the Biden administration, okay? Overall, every president has failed. Why? Because they continue to spend outrageous amount of money. Every administration, okay, every Congress, they have not done the thing that really is right for our country. Why? Because the pain would be too much for the American people. That's why I said that we all inherently are hypocrites. We complain about $38 trillion in debt, but we don't want a recession, okay? We complain that we're not getting any opportunities, but we don't want more government control, okay? We complain that immigrants are taking our resources, but then we don't like when they get deported, all right? It's just, again, cost of being a human being. We sometimes don't even know what we want. And then when we say what we want and then we start going through it, we're like, whoa, wait a minute. I said I wanted that, but I didn't want it this way. You know? So just understand that at the foundation here. Now, having said all that, record inflation under Biden, which made the cost of everything go up. No secret about it at this point. The problem is once prices go up, they don't come down. Okay? Now, what can happen is that the rate of inflation comes down, okay? So obviously the rate of inflation under the Biden administration was high. The rate of inflation right now is low. That is an objective truth. But the damage has already been done. Prices aren't coming down unless a recession happens. Or wages go up, jobs go up, supply goes up. And how do we do that? Well, this is why I said, instead of the $2,000 dividend check, what are we doing to streamline young adults who are in college to get jobs? Okay? Instead of this H-1B visa nonsense, okay? Instead of this 600,000 Chinese students, which some of them are definitely spies, why are we not prioritizing the American worker and the American student? Why are we wasting students' time with 4 years of college? They don't need 4 years. You don't need 4 years of curriculum where at least 50% of it is nonsense. It's irrelevant, has no bearing on your career whatsoever. Not needed. No return on investment. Let's cut it down. Instead of 4 years, let's go 2 years, specialized training. You want to be a lawyer? Okay. You want to be a doctor, an engineer? These next 2 years, when you join this university, will only be classes that will clearly prepare you for that. Heck, let's not even wait for college. Let's just start your senior year of high school. Let's just go all the way. Well, DeVory, you know, some of these universities are going to go out of business. Good, because we know they got theirs and some. Okay? 2 generations lied to about student loans. So instead of the $2,000 dividend check, let's do that. All right? And we could come up with other programs, but again, it's just all common sense. Let's get some results here. But I understand why the president is pushing this, because at the end of the day, it's what, listen, if you're running on populism, you would say things like this. You would want things like this. You want to put money back in the pockets of the American people. So that's why it makes sense from their perspective. All right, here's a good one. You are a YouTuber making millions on YouTube. You don't need $2,000. But as a senior citizen living solely on low Social Security, that money will fix my leaking roof. Okay. So the brutal truth here is that 2 things are true at the same time. There are people struggling in this country. And it's also true that there are a lot of people that are not prepared for retirement. There are a lot of people who are living off their Social Security. And I say we, really the federal government, has created this environment where inflation is screwing those people too. I think that's true. But let's not lose sight of responsibility here. It's not the government's responsibility to fix your roof, okay? That's your responsibility. That's just the bottom line to it, okay? And that's why I'm a firm believer in let's get the government out of the way and let's get communities back involved. Let's get private and nonprofits back involved to help people like yourself. And by the way, I would argue, because I know about this because I had a roofing business, there are programs in your local county that will pay to fix your roof, especially if you're only living on Social Security. Question is, have you reached out to those type of programs? I don't know what state you lived in, but in California, those exist. I know that because they even paid to have solar installed on people's roofs, okay? So there are programs out there for people like you. But it still doesn't address the main premise here, or really the problem, the root cause of it, which is the economy continues to leave a lot of people behind because of inflation. And if we don't educate ourselves on how we can adapt to the ever-changing economy, we will be left behind. It doesn't matter whether you're 80 years old living on Social Security, or you're 19 years old fresh out of high school, or you're 26 years old fresh out of college. You got to get the right information. Here's a good one. Better thing would be the government to cap interest rates on debt issued by banks. It's an interesting idea. I love this. Here is where critical thinking is needed. Don't pay down debt. Spend so more prices go up as you pay more for everything. No, pay down your debt and be physically responsible is better. Am I wrong? No, you're not. You're not. That's the part that people don't understand is if the president hands out money, people will spend more money. If people spend more money, then these businesses will not lower their prices because people are willing to pay for them. That's the whole thing about inflation. So if people stop spending money because they don't have any money, what does that force the business to do? They have to drop their prices. That's why recession is nice. It's necessary because it prevents people from spending money, and it also resets the value of things. And here's the interesting thing about any situation out there. We live in the United States of America. There is always an opportunity to fix whatever situation you're in. We have people who spend 40 years in a max prison, get out, and live a nice life. We have people who come here from other countries, don't even know how to speak English, and financially are just fine. Okay? We have people who, have disabilities, and even they live a decent life. So why do I say all this? Even a bum on the corner in some instances makes more money than other people in other countries. So we live in the greatest country in the world because it literally doesn't matter your age, your status, where you're at, where you live. There is an opportunity in this country to improve the quality of your life, but that only exists for the person who's open-minded enough to believe that. If you don't believe it, that means you're going to be blinded. The opportunity could be sitting right in front of you. You wouldn't see it because your mind isn't, you're not programmed to see things like that. That's why ultimately I'm not a guy who feels sorry for people because I know things can always get better for them. I think it sucks. I have empathy because I've been through a lot of tough stuff. But the big lesson that I've learned in my own life is things always work out. If things didn't work out, you wouldn't be watching this live stream today. Things are always working out. I think that's just the bottom line to it. All right. Okay, I think we're at the end here. Let's get to questions, then I got to wrap up. As an illegal, you're given everything you need to succeed over an American. I'm talking about legal immigrants, people who immigrant to this country legally, find a lot of success because they don't make any excuses. That's what I was talking about. And the government wasting our money on illegal immigrants, of course, by giving them debit cards with $12,000 on it, luxury hotels. It's at the end of the day, it's all short term anyway. It's not going to last long, as we already know what happened in New York City. But secondly, listen, the last thing you want is the government trying to help you out every step of the way. You don't want that because that means you're giving up your own sovereignty and your own control to the government. And when you finally want to step out and do something for yourself, they will stop you. Okay. So we have to be very cautious of what we should be advocating for the government to do and be involved in. Okay. A great example of that is just look at SNAP, look at WIC, look at welfare, look at Section 8, look at a lot of these government programs that in the beginning made a lot of sense for people who truly needed it, qualified for it, got it. But look where we're at today. It all has doubled. Not American citizens are on it, but not all of them. Okay. And so we have to get back to doing exactly what the state of Utah does. You want welfare? You want government benefits? One, you got to pass a drug test. Two, you got to show that you're actually working or you're looking for work. You're not just going to sit on this government program for the rest of your life. Right? So there's the balance there. All right. We're at the end here. So bottom line, guys, is these seditious six, meaning the 6 Democrats who, created the video to tell members of the military that they can defy lawful orders. That's just more partisan political theater. It's going nowhere. Nobody's going to get arrested. Nobody will be prosecuted. They deserve the criticism that they're getting, no question. The president clearly amplified it by posting the comments that he did. And at the end of the day, it goes nowhere. Secondly, this tariff stuff does go somewhere because the Supreme Court's about to rule on it, whether they agree with the president or not. And I think that will dictate whether or not they issue or even make a strong attempt to issue. Because remember, this type of policy has to go through Congress and would be involved in a reconciliation bill, okay? And reconciliation bill is already a nightmare, okay? That's a whole, you thought a continuing resolution was a problem? Reconciliation is a problem. Remember, continuing resolution is in the name. We are voting to extend the same level of spending. We are voting to continue we pass in regards to our reconciliation process. Reconciliation is where we actually look line by line and we decide, cut this, cut this over here, add this amount over there. It's a reconciliation of the books. The reconciliation process is much more crazier than a continuing resolution. So if the government is shut down, over a continuing resolution. Imagine what happens when they finally get around to doing the reconciliation process. We have all been fair warned. All right. Hopefully you guys got value. If you did, please like, share, subscribe to our show. We go live Monday through Friday. We won't be live on Thanksgiving Day for obvious reasons, but we will be on Friday potentially. We'll see. But if you're new here, the best way to support is by subscribing to the show. So thank you guys for your attention today. And with that, I'm going to say God bless you and God bless the United States of America. Take care, everyone.